everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Development of Black Businesses in America webinar. My name is Hannah Fernandez, and I'm the chapter chair of SCORE Chicago. To give you a quick background, SCORE has been around as a resource partner of the SBA since 1964, providing free and confidential business mentoring for business owners across the country. So whether you are a new entrepreneur or you've been in business for a long time, our SCORE mentors can help you start, grow, and scale your businesses. To schedule an appointment with our mentors, go to our website at chicago.score.org. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Ron Busby is the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers. Ron brings business management skills as well as a lifetime of community development experience to the organization. Mr. Busby is a former successful business owner himself, and he has been recognized as one of the nation's best CEOs. Ron grew his first company, USA Super Clean, from $150,000 annualized revenue to over $15 million in only 10 years. Early on in his career, USA Super Clean was recognized as the largest Black-owned janitorial firm in the country. Mr. Busby has also started and grown 2 other janitorial firms, both resulting in over $4 million in annualized revenue. Currently, Ron serves on the Pfizer Small Business Council, National Newspapers Publishers Association, Foundation Board of Directors, White House African American Leadership Council. He has also formerly served on the U.S. Small Business Administration's Council on Underserved Communities. Ron, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share with my journey as well as some of the experiences with the audience.
We're so happy to have you. And now the other presenter is Bill Hoover. Bill is the executive director of Paragon AGI. He is a certified SCORE mentor and serves as the SCORE Chicago Vice Chair of Partnerships. Bill has a degree in business management. A dedicated entrepreneur for over 20 years, Bill has worked in both the public and private sectors, developing, implementing, and educating business strategies through transformational learning programs to develop communities and the models of environmental technologies. Bill has cultivated entrepreneurs in emerging technologies and trained youth and adults in in-demand industries. Bill has developed global partnerships for cultural relations that complement businesses and establish local and global opportunities, entrusted to leadership positions with local and national business concerns. Bill's ability to engage innovative strategies and coordinate long-running high-profile projects on the international stage has awarded Bill the opportunity to have oversight in multiple industries and promote equality hiring in fields and technology. Ron and Bill, you're both on.
Well, this is exciting, Hannah. This is exciting because for so many reasons, we now have a real opportunity to have a dialogue and engage in the first ever small Black business dialogue with the Chamber, the U.S. Black Chamber. And what we're looking to do here is provide some real knowledge, some real information. I'm associated with SCORE in many areas, but the most exciting area that I'm proud of is exactly what I do with the Black American Council. And with the Black American Council, what we're striving to do is work very closely with the community and with businesses to see how we can make those businesses grow. But what makes this even more exciting is the fact that this is Black History Month. And this is the first time that SCORE has really gotten involved in an area that really gets into the community, develop relationships, develop partnerships, find out how we can really make businesses grow. So I'm very honored to have Ron here with us today to talk about the chambers. Chambers, we rely on our chambers to aid us in developing business and business relationships, both locally and nationally. And Ron's here with his national organization to provide us with some context. So the first question I'm going to ask, because I know many people have worked with chambers in the past, Ron, and then many have not. If you could tell me exactly what is the chamber, what does the U.S. Black Chamber do, and what is the role of the chamber in the community?
Great questions, and I am also honored to be here the second day of February as we share information about Black history. I tell folk all the time, we are making history each and every day. It is our opportunity to tell our own story. And in that story, Black business has always been at the forefront of an economic conversation. And so, again, I'm the president of the United States Black Chamber. We were founded in 2009. At the time, we had 6 chambers. Today, we have over 148 chambers. We're located in 42 states, including Canada and 6 countries in Africa, with a membership base of literally over 360,000 Black-owned businesses. We're founded on what we call our 5 key pillars. Located here in Washington, D.C., we understand the importance of policy. And so our first pillar is really around advocacy, ensuring that Black businesses have a voice as well as a seat at the table, not just on the implementation of programs, but on the concept, the development, as well as the rollout of those programs. Our second pillar, and if you ask any small business owner what their number one concern is, they will say access to capital. When you talk to a Black business owner, they will say their number one, number two, as well as their number 3 concern is access to affordable and available capital. And so the U.S. Black Chamber has partnered with several institutions to be able to provide the capital that they need to start their businesses, and most importantly, to be able to have sustainability. And so we have partnered with several of our Black banks, and one of those Black banks is Liberty Bank out of Louisiana, the largest Black bank. And so now the U.S. Black Chamber has our own credit card at an interest rate of 9.98% interest for business owners with credit scores that are lower than normal. We understand and have seen demonstrated across the country that Black business owners are paying twice the interest rate of our white peers with the same portfolio, the same credit score, the same assets. Black business owners are paying around 19.8% versus our white peers that are paying 10%. Our third one is contracting opportunities. And we look at that really from 3 different vantage points, Bill. The first one is, where is the government spending its dollars? And we know that they're the largest procurer in the country. It just recently was announced that Elon Musk was the richest man in the world. But what we don't hear about often is that he got much of his wealth through government contracts. My story is that I grew my firm from $150,000 to $15 million. But what is not told is that I had the opportunity to participate in a federal government program called the 8A program, which was a uniquely set aside program for businesses of minority ownership. It allowed me to grow from bidding on jobs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to literally bidding on jobs in the millions of dollars, literally overnight. The challenge is that it is only a 9-year program. We were successful in 2020 of expanding that program to now the 10 years, which we hope to see more generational wealth created by that extra year, as most of those firms are doing around $10 million plus. And we hope to see that those firms getting that extra year could then turn around and do more subcontracting, joint ventures, and partnerships with other smaller minority firms. We're also concerned, where is corporate America spending its money? And we have a mandate with our Corporate Advisory Council, those corporations that have partnered with the U.S. Black Chamber, to ensure that they're spending 15% of their funds on procurement opportunities with Black-owned businesses. We hear across the country in the Black community that Black people have $1 trillion of spend power. But usually that's not Black people talking about that. That's usually corporate America saying the Black consumer has $1 trillion. How can we market to them to ensure that we get their share? We're saying, how can we flip the conversation to keep that $1 trillion, as much of it, in our community so that our communities and businesses have sustainability and long term. So the third leg of that is where are Black people spending our own dollars? And we've created a platform that addresses both the needs of corporate America as well as Black individuals and regular consumers looking to support Black-owned businesses, in a platform called Buy Black, BYBLACK.US. Hopefully we'll be able to talk more about that. Our fourth one is really where I think SCORE and the US Black Chamber have a significant role. In last year, 2020, we surveyed over 22,000 Black-owned businesses. And the one thing that we found consistent across the board was that 78% of them reached out for no expert advice. And in a time period where there were so many platforms being introduced to us, we weren't able to take advantage of many of the educational acumen skills that we needed to be able to get through the stimulus package and other challenges. And so where SCORE is definitely needed is really to be able to provide that technical assistance and that one-on-one nurturing and mentoring that our businesses need. And then the last one is chamber development. Again, we have over or close to 150 chambers across the country, but I always say I'm only as strong as my weakest link. And so I make sure that our chamber presidents have the resources, the relationships, and the skills that they need to be able to have a sustainable community.
That's excellent, Ron. I have to touch on a couple of things that you were saying there because I would like you to elaborate. Certainly, business and going into business has been a small issue with Black business, being able to secure those contracts. The creating different areas of activity that we have to get past. One of those is that 8A certification that you talked about. Certainly, minority business enterprise, woman business enterprise. These are documents that have to be completed, filled out just to show that you are not only an African American, but that you have the wherewithal to develop those contracts and perform on them successfully. What does the chamber do with regard to being able to complete those documentations to make those contracts accessible to the business person?
Great questions. Currently, if I'm a Black-owned business in the United States, there are really only two places I can be certified as a Black-owned business. One of them is the 8A SBA program. And I'll be honest, that is really not suited for 99.9% of Black-owned businesses. It's very complicated. It is for large $1 million+ opportunities. And so although it is there for certification, I would not recommend most Black firms go that route until they're prepared. The second option is the National Minority Supplier Development Council, NMSDC. That is a certification program for all minority businesses. I live in Bowie, Maryland. So my customer set would probably be companies in Virginia, Washington, DC, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and perhaps New York. Now that geography, I could literally drive in about 3 to 4 hours. But if I wanted to be certified to do business in those various states, I would literally have to go and get a certification in each one of those states. It's expensive, it's convoluted, and for every state, and many times there are different criteria to be considered a Black-owned business. The US Black Chamber has our own certification, very easy to use. In 2021, it will be free to sign up, be free to be certified, and it literally takes less than 15 minutes to onboard your firm, and then about another 15 minutes to be certified as a Black-owned business. I will say this, right now, if I'm a Black-owned business or a Hispanic-owned business, I can't be certified. But yet, if I'm an Asian-owned business, I can be certified. If I am a woman-owned business, as you stated, I can be certified. If I'm gay and lesbian, I can be certified. But if I am Black, I can only be certified in general as a minority business. I say every morning when I wake up, I'm Black, and each night when I go to bed, I'm Black. I'm not a minority, and in this time, under these circumstances, we need to be intentional about the programs, about the certification, as well as the opportunities going forward for who we are, as well as who we represent.
Excellent. So let's step one step further then, the political arena, because we need to engage ourselves within the political arena in order to facilitate those changes that need to be made for Black businesses to work comfortably or to be a part of that group so that they can get those contracts both locally and nationally. What kind of relationships can be established through the chamber for those businesses to take on that kind of activity?
Great question. So the U.S. Black Chamber was very involved early on with this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, during the campaign. But let me pause, because usually when you hear the words Black, you think Democrat, and when you hear the word business, you think Republican. We are a Black business organization that is here advocating on behalf of Black businesses. We're a bipartisan organization. We had just as much advocacy efforts the last 4 years as we did our first 8 years. We will celebrate our 12th year anniversary in March, but the U.S. Black Chamber is really about making sure that the Black agenda is at the forefront of the conversation, and thus it doesn't matter. We have been very involved in this administration to ensure that they know the needs of Black-owned businesses. Early on, during the stimulus package, we were at the table. And if you've looked at the 1,700 pages plus on the documentation, you will not read the words Black or African-American. You will only see the words minority listed, and that is only listed in the Minority Business Development Agency. So in this administration, we were very focused on making sure that we are involved not just on the implementation or the rollout plan, but involved in all phases of the new administration to make sure that our voice, as well as our concerns, are very involved. And so I have had the opportunity to meet with this administration quite often to make sure that new stimulus packages that are included, as well as opportunities from infrastructure to trade, to the 8A programs, other opportunities that our voice is going to be included at all phases.
Well, there you have it. It takes all of us, and it takes every level of activity in this country, in our businesses, in our business paradigm, our business acumen, in order to make our businesses work. So all of this actually comes from the chamber. So the relationships that are established with the chamber helps on the political side, as well as the contracting side, and being able to develop that individual business to grow or create the kind of business that they want, and then get into that $1 million mark. That's not for everybody, however. What we've learned is that most businesses are small businesses. They want to do 100,000, 3, 4, 500,000. How can we and the chamber develop relationships through education programs, through various methods of going and changing the mindset from a small business to a big business? Or is that even an avocation of the chamber to work with owners to do that?
Well, I think for us as the U.S. Black Chamber, we're about developing wealth in the Black community. And the easiest and the quickest way to be able to develop wealth is through the generation of developing successful Black-owned businesses. And so all of the work that we do is developed around the creation, growth of Black-owned businesses across the country. And so for us, it's very important. And I think it's probably the best thing that we can do in this moment in time. We have seen the Black community really get hit by what we call a trifecta. The first leg of that trifecta was the virus itself, and we lost 46,000 Black Americans due to COVID-19. But more importantly, or equally as important, we lost 41% of all Black-owned businesses between the months of February and April. That related to about 441,000 Black-owned businesses that were closed, not due to any of their own detriment. It wasn't like they didn't pay their bills or lost business. It was because of a virus that they could not control. And then the second leg of that was the stimulus package, or the lack thereof. Many of us were excited early on when we heard that there was going to be a $439 billion stimulus package that was announced on that Friday. And by that Saturday, 250 billion of those dollars were already awarded to 50 white publicly traded firms, which literally left all the rest of America's small businesses competing for those last few dollars. And 76% of Black firms said they got no payroll protection plan, or far less than what was needed. And then the third leg of that is we saw the murder of George Floyd, and a police officer get away with no impact. And thus, Black America was forced to say our lives matter, thus the Black Lives Matter movement. Where we are right now is to continue that dialogue, continue that movement, but as it relates to an economic conversation, it's gotta really be based upon business opportunities to move our community past the civil, CIVIL, to the silver, SILVER, opportunities to continue to make sure that our voices are going to be heard long-term.
That civil relationship that really needs to be had, if we step back and look at what's happening in the community, not only did we lost 41% of those businesses, but the communities began to falter, jobs began to falter. It creates a domino effect. And that domino effect really impacts organizations, businesses, lifestyles, education. It creates an entirely negative attribute for us as people of color to go past. So let's talk about COVID-19 and how its impact. We have to come out of this. And throughout a lot of our activities, we've been talking about post-COVID in one sense of another, in a way to give hope that we can move forward, we can move past this. But post-COVID may not come for another 5 or 6 years in reality. What do you think, based on everything that we talked about today? Because we talk about business and the opportunities that exist, the work that's ahead of us and in front of us that we have to do. What do you see, and what kind of business relationships should we be looking at going into the future?
Great question. And I kind of look at this as a people, this is really an opportunity for us. And I say that really in line with what you just mentioned. When we lost that 41% or 450,000 Black-owned businesses, it also created a void in our community. Because when you lose those businesses, you also lose potentially their employees, their contractors, their 1099, their family members that work there. You also lose their customers, their vendors, as well as that tax base. And what we're finding is many of those Black firms don't have the opportunity to restart, as they are saying now. And so white firms are coming in to take over that opportunity because the need is still there. It's unfortunately being now met by business owners outside of our community. And so what we're telling folk across the country is, now let's look at how do we save that revenue in our communities. Let's look at doing joint ventures. Let's look at consortiums and partnerships, and where it makes sense, mergers and acquisitions. We've got to start to think forward. This will not be the last scare. This will not be the last pandemic. If the next one is a cybersecurity war, we've got to now take the blinders off and say, how do we prepare ourselves going forward? The one thing I do want to tell your audience, we heard the terminology over these last few months about Black business owners not having we're financially illiterate. And I take offense to that. As Black business owners, we are the most educated. We have more postgraduate degrees than any other ethnic group in America. What we lacked was relationships. And so for our businesses, now is the time to make sure that we are developing the types of relationships that we need to be able to get out of this and to have sustainability going forward. If I'm a business owner and I own my home, I'm a Black man, I have a business plan, I have a decent credit score, a couple of things will happen when I go to the bank. If I had a white neighbor who had the same business plan, I graduated from college, he or she graduated from high school. I own my home, he or she rents her home. A few things will happen when we go into the bank with the same business plan, with the same request of $100,000. One, I'm never going to be called Mr. I'm always going to be called Ron. I'm never going to have the opportunity to talk to a real decision maker of someone that can say yes. 90% of the time, I will be speaking to someone that can say no, but maybe if I'm lucky enough, they will pass me off to someone that can say yes. Third, if I am blessed enough to get past all of the barriers, I have all of my I's dotted, all of my T's crossed, I'm asking for $100,000, I'm going to get $40,000. I'm going to ask for 100, I'm going to have all my documentation, I'm going to get 40,000. And as a people, spiritual people, we leave the bank saying, thank you, Jesus. Let me take this $40,000 and go and start my business. Bill, you and I know that 90% of businesses fail within the first year. And it has very little to do with their acumen, the desire to work the amount of time that's necessary, or even their skill set. It has a lot to do with the amount of capital that they need to be able to get through a difficult time. The average Black family has less than $300 for a family emergency. The average Black business has less than 15 days of revenue set aside for a business emergency. So during the period of time where we were talking about a payroll protection plan, which was never created for our community, Bill, of the 2.6 million Black-owned businesses that we own and operate across this country, 2.5 million aren't mom and pop, but 2.5 million are mom or pop, single employer firms that have 1099s, that have contractors, that have family or cash and carry, but because of the way they are organized, they weren't able to participate in this country's largest stimulus package. It was never based upon need, but it was based upon a policy in which we weren't involved in. That's where and how we have got to make a change going forward. So those members that are members of SCORE, make sure that your voice is being heard. This is not about a payroll, but it is really about making sure that our businesses have the resources that they need to have sustainability.
Well said, and I'm glad you brought SCORE up in that vein, because that's exactly the direction that we're looking to go into. It is not just circumstance that you and I are talking on this first day or second day of Black History Month. This is a conversation that we needed to have and that we have had over the course of years and over the course of time. That relationship that we need to have with not only the organizations that we want to do business with, but the education that we can get from an organization like SCORE. The openness that is now available, because you can look at people like yourself and have that conversation and be understood. Moreover, utilizing the relationships that SCORE has with our financial institutions, with our ability to secure contracting potentials and get your name on those lists where businesses are looking at you and you can identify with those businesses in order to secure contracts. We are here to aid in that regard. I think when you and I met, I know when you and I met for the first time, your comment was, after 10 seconds of us talking, was, oh my God, SCORE. And I understood exactly what you were saying. I understood the dynamic that was associated with it. And ironically, yesterday I was talking to another individual on the phone who questioned me about SCORE again. And what we are trying to do, and the whole emphasis for our having this conversation, which is an open conversation, open dialogue, is to express the opportunities that are not only available, but the ability to go one step further in being able to help those businesses thrive. And not only talk about those individual businesses, but what kind of jobs are available, what kind of opportunities are available for your community, for your infrastructure. And we can sell that back to the government because taxes, the revenues that can be made in these communities go right back into the city and create more revenues for the city to build itself, working with those communities. So let's go a step further because we understand the challenges that businesses face. And I think one of those challenges, and we touched on it a little bit, is education. Being able to, what I call exposure and participate. Once you're exposed to a new thought or a new ability, then and participate in it, then the possibility of growth is there. What do you see in terms of communities and businesses being educated so that they can now speak up not only for themselves and through the organizations like yours, but be able to have an effective communication with the financial institutions to show I am not just that guy that's going to take the $40,000, but I'm here to get the $100,000 so that we can really build an infrastructure. What would you say in terms of being able to educate our business owners and going forward?
Two-part question, and I'll try to address both of them. The first part, great information. Anytime there's a political change from a local city to a state, or in this case, the country, you always hear conversation about infrastructure. We're going to have an infrastructure bill. And the U.S. Black Chamber has stated, we know where COVID hit. COVID hit 40 counties. Those 40 counties are minority majority. That's where we live. Those are communities like Chicago. And so we're saying any infrastructure bill needs to be in the communities that were affected by the COVID virus, 1. 2, any contract that is going to be developed in those communities needs to be a contractor located in those communities. For us, it needs to be a Black contractor. And 3, individuals like local chambers, like SCORE and SBA and other local advocates need to ensure that when those Black contractors get those contracts because of all of our work, that we mandate that they hire local and that they hire Black. So that is, from a political standpoint, what we're doing. Now, from a local standpoint and from an education standpoint, what we found is that there were a lot of dollars placed out here in reference to not just the federal government, but from the private sector. There was $66 billion commitment made by various corporations to deal with systemic racism, to deal with trying to level the playing field for Black-owned businesses. The challenge is the transparency and the accountability of where, who, and how that $66 billion will actually be rolled out into whom the locations and the businesses and the communities that will be addressed. Our challenge there is to make sure that when it comes available, that we are prepared. And I want to say that we're going to have some wins here in Washington, D.C., as well as around the country. No question about that. And I say that to those that are listening, especially on the second day of February. African Americans were instrumental in getting these two, our president and vice president, elected. We are here to make sure that there is a return on that investment. And so we will make sure that when the opportunities come, we will have those presented. What we have to do is be prepared. What we did also saw was that the businesses that got funding, both payroll protection, EIDL loans, as well as private corporations grant dollars, were those businesses that had great visibility on social media. Those firms that had great websites and had most of their documentation on Facebook and other social media platforms were being recognized, and they were getting multiple grants, multiple opportunities. Where folk like SCORE and like Chambers need to be involved is to increase the visibility of those businesses that don't have the same type of social skills, web development skills that our businesses need. I tell young people all the time, stop looking for a job. Look for an opportunity that will create yourself a job. If you come with a skill set that is going to help a small, local Black-owned business to grow, you can earn yourself exponentially an opportunity that can take that business to new heights that will hopefully ultimately either get you hired or, more importantly, in many cases, allow you to have a succession plan to take over that business. And so to answer both of your questions, one, be prepared on both sides of the conversation as it relates to your business, as it relates to your community, and most importantly, as it relates to your social media presence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's no such thing as I'm not ready. The answer to that is get ready, because the opportunity is there. You just have to take advantage of it and know that it's there for you. So I really like those responses, Ron, and you do always give me a chance to really plug in what we do here, because we're a free organization. We're looking forward to businesses growing. When I first came to SCORE, I had a negative response, but this was years ago. Things have changed, and what's changed about it is that we're here to now aid those new businesses, those existing businesses, as well as startup operations. We want to aid those businesses. We want to see them thrive, because we know that once that happens, the community thrives. And if the community thrives, the infrastructure thrives. If the infrastructure thrives, then it's a domino effect for the entire family and for the culture in and of itself. The relationships that we now have in politics, and it's a full diaspora of people that now represent what America really is. And I guess this is a question too for you, Ron, as well. Because we have these multiplicity of representations now, how should businesses react toward the positioning of various cultures now in the political spectrum and performing? How should businesses, and how would the chamber react in aiding those new businesses to develop even more of an inclusive and sustainable growth in their occupations and in their workload? How would you identify that with the political spectrum, with where we are now, with the government that exists?
Well, Bill, so often when you hear the word Black, you think Democrat. And when you hear the word business, you think Republican. We're Black businesses. And we are about Black business. We're not about any particular party. We're a bipartisan organization, but we are here to move the Black business agenda forward. And I think we're unapologetically Black. So all of our conversations will be consistent, regardless of who's in office, regardless of what's going on around the country. Our agenda is to move Black businesses forward. And I think as we come together as a community, the great thing about all of us working together, we have a great partnership with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, the U.S. Pan-Asian Chamber, even the U.S. Gay and Lesbian Chamber. And when we come together, they never know which one of us to defend upon. There are consistencies and there are commonalities amongst all of us, but collectively our voices are being heard. And so for those that are listening, I wouldn't necessarily get caught up in the political aspect of it. Just know and understand that business is always going to be at the forefront of our agenda, And it should be, I know SCORE would appreciate and has the same type of consistency and consistent message as well.
Absolutely. We do carry that, and point well taken. Let's go a step further. Industries. What are the industries that you feel will dominate the future, and that businesses that will grow both locally and nationally? What kind of industries do you see within your within the chamber that has real opportunities? We get a lot of individuals, we get a lot of clients that come in, and especially now we have 21 million people out of work. 13% of that, 14% of that are people of color. What do you see as opportunities for people that are looking to go into business that's sustainable? We're getting quite a few that don't know what they want to do, but they know they can't go back to work because they recognize the fact that it's a job, as you said earlier, and those jobs can easily go away, thus leaving that person with no ability to perform, no ability to pay their rent, to send their kids to school. What do you see as good markets that people can get involved in going toward the future?
I got a great answer for you, Bill. Usually the answer goes something that you're passionate about, something that you don't mind working 14 hours a day on, something that you don't mind investing your own money in. And Bill, that's crap. There are a lot of smart people that have worked a lot of hard hours, long days, invested a lot of their money, and with no fault of their own, go out of business because they were in the wrong business. There is no right business. My story is I was in corporate America, had a technology background, was a senior VP at Coca-Cola Fountain Sales, and I left to go run a janitorial service with 5 employees, my mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and me. Our annualized revenue was less than my annual salary, but I had a vision, a strategy, and a tactical plan to double my revenue every year, thus giving me the type of business that I ultimately wanted to own and operate. Very easy the first few years to go from 150,000 to 300,000. Just a little work. To go from 300,000 to 750,000, I wore a shirt and tie in a very manual, intense industry. To go from 750 to 1.5, I got involved in some local city contracts. To go from 1.5 million to 3 million, there was a federal building that came to our town, and I did a joint venture and a consortium with some other Black business owners, all of us participating, and I ultimately ended up winning the entire project because there was so much finger pointing to other individuals that at the end of the day, we ended up standing alone to take over the entire contract. I then was at a $7 million number, didn't know how I was going to grow to $15 million, and was introduced to a book by a Black man, one of my fraternity brothers, Reginald Lewis. And the name of the book is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it was a book about the first Black billionaire, the road that he traveled to get there, and he got there through acquisitions. And I said, that's it. I'm going to spend the next 6 months to determine the right type of firm. I was in Oakland. Before it was called Silicon Valley, it was just San Jose. San Jose was a place that was unsafe, but where technology was finding its new home. Although I had worked at IBM, had worked at Xerox, I could not even get an interview to empty the trash or clean the restrooms in their facilities. What I did is I didn't give up hope or say, well, I need to go into a different industry because that's the hot industry right now. I said, let me find out the firm that's doing the work. I found the right firm. I did all of the research. I knew all of their 700 plus employees. I knew their customer set. I knew their banker. I knew their suppliers. I knew their vendors. I knew more about their firm than they did. Ultimately found out who the owner was and negotiated an acquisition that allowed us to become the largest Black janitorial firm. And then within 12 to 18 months later, I was able to sell that firm and take a nice payday that allowed me to go on and do it ultimately again and again. I say that to say there's no magic wand that is going to say this is where you're going to be successful. There are very few new mouse traps being created, but I say take the ones that are existing, develop your own unique identity and your own unique style, and you too can be successful at marketing that mousetrap. I will say that we lost 150,000 Black women jobs in the month of December, but at the same time, we picked up 150,000 new jobs for white women. The critical thing there is the amount of expertise that they had in the skill sets that they brought to their employer. Again, I say it is really about making sure that you are comfortable with what you bring to the table and what you're willing to do to be successful, and to make sure you have a relationship with Christ that's going to get you through all of this, and stay steadfast focused on the vision that you have to be able to create your own vision at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I agree with the passion. You have to have a passion for a thing in order for it to succeed. If you have that passion, the only thing, even if it fails, the passion of you being able to change that strategy, to pivot within that same strategy is available to you. But first, you have to have the passion. You and I share a relationship too that you mentioned earlier. When I started off in business, I started off buying companies, relatively large companies. And I did it on what was called at that time LBOs. And it was M&As that were very exciting to me because I was discriminated against a position, and I shouldn't have been, because I had the education for it and the position for it, but someone else got that job. And I thought, well, I'm going to go out and do something where I don't have to worry about this. And ultimately, it came down to actually buying a company. And at the same time, I had an opportunity to talk to Reginald Lewis, who had just bought Beatrice, the first Black billionaire. And that was more exciting than just reading this book. It was, now I'm looking at somebody that did the exact same thing that I was about to do, but he did it on a national level, which was where we need to be in an international arena, because we have that ability to do that. And looking at the acquisition of existing operations is also something that an individual can do to get in the business. But you having experience in mergers and acquisitions, M&As, then what would you tell people that are looking to get into business that requires a level of intellect, but also their passion and the ability to perform? Because as you know, in M&A, you have to come across a great many people in order to facilitate something like that. How would you identify or help people identify with the opportunity to go into M&A, of buying a business that they have passion for, and or getting into a business, a franchise, getting into a franchise operation?
Yeah, I was going to mention franchising is always a great opportunity for young and new business owners to get there, because there is a floor plan. And I will say this, while I was in corporate America, I worked at Coca-Cola. I was a VP of fountain sales. And early on in my career, because I didn't know the industry that well, I would get to work at 7 a.m. and I wouldn't leave each evening until 7 p.m. It wasn't like I was looking for brownie points or time and a half. I was really just trying to learn the industry. I had a white peer. At the time I was 27, he was 56. He used to get to work at 9, and he would leave each evening at 5. About 3 months into my career, my supervisor called me into my office and he said, "Ron, I want you to pack your bags." And I thought to myself, man, I'm getting ready to get fired. What did I do wrong? And he said, "No, I want you to move into Joe's office. Joe was the 56-year-old white guy. And I said, well, where is Joe going? And he said, Joe's going to be reporting to you. That day, I said, I have to make an exit strategy because I didn't want to work another 30 years only to report to someone literally half my age that was prepared to work a few more hours just to learn what I already knew. At the time, McDonald's was our largest customer at Coca-Cola. If you know anything about McDonald's, the same French fry you get in San Jose, you get in San Antonio, you get in Seattle, or you get in Singapore. And it's got very little to do with how much salt you put on the fries, but it really was a system. It was a systematic approach to how to own and operate your own small business. There were several Black millionaires that were franchise owners of McDonald's. And I thought to myself, well, that's where I need to go to learn to be a business owner. And so I would wear a shirt and tie every day to work at Coca-Cola from 7 to 7, change my clothes in my car, and go to work at McDonald's from 8 to midnight. I learned how to drop fries, clean grills, but more importantly, manage young people that were really there just to make a minimum wage and to get through either high school or help provide some additional funding. It really was me understanding how to develop a business strategy that I could roll across the country. And so the U.S. Black Chambers learned from a product and a platform that was already created that allowed us to take a little bit of everything that I had learned over the years and develop and implement what was then the largest Black janitorial service in the country based on systems. When I grew the U.S. Black Chamber, again, we started with 6 chambers. Now we have over 150 chambers, and it was because of a system that we have developed that has worked around the country. I say that to say, when you are developing your business, make sure that as much as passion as you have, that is a systematic approach so that as you grow, you can grow within the system that you've created versus always trying to pivot, always trying to develop a new tactic, always trying to develop a new growth strategy. Think about it. As we have these months where many of us are confined to being at home, it is a great opportunity for us to really develop a long-term strategic and tactical plan that you can implement and develop to give you the sustainability that you need. And most importantly, you have folk like SCORE, you have folk like the U.S. Black Chamber that can really help you with the research and the data that you need to make yourself successful.
Absolutely. And I must say too that much has happened. Many people have, we've lost family members, we've lost friends throughout this, these several months that we've been up under COVID-19. And certainly the political unrest and then the civil unrest that we're experiencing did not help our realities anymore. But these were moments of reckoning and realizing who we are as a people. So also recognize that throughout this time period, you should not be idle. You should actually be focusing on what it is that impacts you, what impacts your family, what do you feel passionate about, and start working on that. Pick up a book and start reviewing that. Pick up a pencil and paper and start studying and writing out what it is that you want to do. Look at the internet. There's so much information that you can disseminate what's good for you and what's not good for you, which means focus on those opportunities that will create a better you toward the end of this year and the next year. We're not saying COVID is going to go away, but what we're saying is indoors right now is an opportunity for you to grab hold of who you are as an individual and how you can build a better you. I really enjoy the conversations that we're having, Ron, because they're insightful and they allow people to understand what they need to do to develop their business. So I'm going to encourage our listeners, our viewers, to send their questions in. This is very important that we have dialogue, not only between Ron and myself, but also with you. So any questions that you have, just put them in the chat box and we can respond to them. And also remember that SCORE is here as a consulting organization, nonprofit, here to help you develop your business. No matter who you talk to, the relationship that we're looking to have is to grow your business, and the opportunities are there. We can help you identify businesses. We can help you identify what marketing concepts that need to be in place, how to strategize your business, how to develop and manage your business effectively, the accounting. We can go so many areas that we can discuss in that arena, but also being a part of a chamber. So I'm going to give you a boost here with your chamber. Not that you guys need it, you're all over the country, but chambers have always been important to me. And I was a member of the Chicago Chamber with the Chicago, or not Chicago, but the Black Chamber here in Illinois, the National Chamber, where I was the business partnership arena, which took me to Cuba and took me to Washington and gave me the opportunity to talk to our congressman about CRA and various other things that chambers do in order to help businesses grow. So even with Ron and his chamber that has national locations, then it's important to be a part of that. So we're talking about national. Let's talk about international. You mentioned earlier that the opportunities and your relationships on the international stage were prevalent. What do you see, and how do you see people interacting on a national level with their business and opportunities?
Great question. So again, being here and having the opportunity to visit with the Biden team, we've been made very clear that Black people had a lot to do with getting him elected. And we are looking for a return on that investment. And I have made it very clear that 98% of the growth of America is going to come outside of the boundaries of this country. And for Black people, the best opportunity that we can have as it relates to reparations or any type of growth is going to come from the continent of Africa. We had 6 priorities, and trade on the continent of Africa is number 5, and we are pushing that opportunity. And so you will see over the course of the first 100 days, the Biden administration to talk a lot more about trade opportunities as it relates to foreign countries. We were very successful at creating a memorandum of understanding with the country of Morocco and North Africa. We've also developed relationships with Congo and Kenya and Nairobi and Nigeria. But for our local businesses, it is by far the best opportunity. And I want people to understand, there's not a size and a scale, well, I'm too small to do business internationally, or my product won't ship well overseas. You never know until you've attempted to make that connection. Their countries, many of them are far more advanced than we are, but many of them are far less advanced and are looking for the resources as well as the skill sets that we bring. And so trade is extremely important to not just America, not just to Africa, but to African Americans and Black people around the globe. We feel like this is an opportunity. Historically, we've always been a little bit shy of having a conversation about reparations. But a couple of things have happened. One, we saw this country write a $660 billion stimulus package for a pandemic within the first couple of weeks of that pandemic. Whereas Black people have been saying that we've been facing a pandemic for over 400 years, but yet we've not had that conversation. I think this country and this leadership of this country is prepared to have that type of dialogue, but we've got to be creative in how we bring it to the table. And we've also have to make sure that we're looking outside of the normal opportunities for where that reparations may end up falling. And I think for many Black Americans, we are excited about the opportunity to take our skill sets, our products, our services back to our mother country.
Absolutely. And this is not a fluke. This is real. The opportunities and the ability to go national or international is so, it's not complicated at all. All you need to have is the will to want to do it. One of my clients was who made baby sheets, beds or sheets for children that would be in various homes and children facilities where children would sleep. They would make these sheets, and they were looking for a better way and a better product and a more vibrant product at a better cost that they could make and then sell that, not just locally, but nationally. The suggestion was go international, look for opportunities internationally. And they actually found a business and a manufacturer in Africa, in Kenya, Africa, where they have created now these international relationships that has expanded their business. Now, COVID has wreaked havoc on most of our operations. But when you look at going international, you're actually expanding your ability to perform. You're expanding your relationships. You're expanding your marketing opportunities. And what I would say to our mentors that are listening to this program, being able to listen closely to our mentees, no matter what nationality they are, being able to listen closely to what's on their mind. Ultimately, we can aid them in growing their business and developing their business because we can think outside the box. That's what we've been doing since as entrepreneurs. All of my life, I've been doing that. My father was in business, so naturally, I would take on that posture. But if we listen closely, we can come up with such innovative opportunities, such innovative ways to work with our clients and then create that equalization in business, in home life, and communities that we're looking for. So looking at the international arena is one of those things that you may not think as mentors we have the ability to do, but actually we do, because a few of my clients have taken that on and have been quite successful at it. So I would see that as a real opportunity. Ron, has the Chamber in their international relations opened offices or developed sponsorship relationships in the international arena?
Yes, we have 6 chamber affiliates on the continent of Africa and a Toronto Black Chamber as well. So we have 7 locations outside of the continent, 6 in Africa and 1 in Canada.
And how do they fare out in terms of doing business as in those countries with what's going on here and what's going on in their countries? How have they fared out in aiding their memberships?
The one thing that all of us learned due to COVID was e-commerce is essential. 65% of all Black people live in 16 states and 40 counties. Those counties were hit extremely difficultly and disproportionately. And so many of our members said to say, I got to look outside of my community to be able to generate new opportunities. And for those that are still doing business outside of their state, many of them said, let's look outside of the country of America. It is not as difficult, and I'm glad to hear that you mentioned one of your clients. Many of our clients now are doing business on the continent of Africa, and I am really, really excited that you're saying now with FinTech, it gives business owners the opportunity to get paid immediately. With many of the shipping arrangements that are being made now, products are being delivered on a very timely basis. And the cost of doing business across the globe is also very, very inexpensive. And it's really a lot easier to do business. We have relationships there on the ground. We have consumers as well as we have folk there that can help navigate some of the politics there as you create these new relationships.
Chambers that are associated with the United States Black Chamber of Commerce, you have them all over the country here. How successful are they in working with their various communities in their regional areas around the country?
Well, we have, again, close to 150 chambers. Some of those are in communities with thriving Black businesses. Some are in very small rural communities where the number of Black-owned businesses is very few and far and in between. So it varies. But what we have done is collectively brought all of our policy agendas as well as opportunities across the globe. So the same things that are being said in small cities in Illinois is consistent with what we're saying and doing in Washington, D.C., or Detroit, or Dayton, or Oakland for that matter. What we have tried to do is lay out a game plan, what we call our Black Print, which is consistent across the country so that all of our businesses are saying and following the same plan. What I find to be very interesting is that early on, the U.S. Black Chamber was saying when the virus hit that we were going to lose between 35 and 40% of Black-owned firms. That was the U.S. Black Chamber loudly screaming that across the country. No one wanted to pay attention. It wasn't an interest at the time. And then when the New York Federal Reserve came out and said, oh, guess what? We actually lost 41% of Black-owned businesses, then the spotlight came on the U.S. Black Chamber. I say that because it is important for all of our local chambers to have a voice so that we can have a conversation about what is happening in our communities as well as for our businesses. Anytime you create a program that is a stimulus program that is supposed to move our communities forward, supposed to move all Black-owned businesses forward, we own and operate across the country, Bill, you know, 2.6 million Black-owned businesses. Out of that 2.6 million, 2.5 million aren't mom and pop. They're mom or pop, single employer firms doing less than $75,000 in annualized revenue. So when the stimulus package was created for businesses that had payroll, it left us out totally of the equation. There's roughly 115,000 Black-owned firms that have one employee. So when we have programs that are created that don't include us, we've got to make sure that all of our local chambers, all of our local affiliates, as well as our business owners have a voice so that we can make sure that that is being addressed here in Washington, D.C., as well as around the country.
Well, thank you for that. And I just recognized, I was looking at my notes and working on Q&A, and I noticed that my camera was off. So I hope it wasn't off throughout the entire piece.
It's off the entire.
There you have it. Okay. So I'm going to ask Toma. Toma, we have some questions, and if you're online, would you ask? Would you respond to or ask what those questions are, and we can respond to them?
Hi, Bill. Yes, of course. One moment.
I just thought you didn't want to see me any longer, Bill.
No, listen, we're recording. I want people to see me.
So
No, it's
first question comes from Daryl. Will the USBC certification be accepted nationwide and federally like the US DOT certification?
Currently is only being acknowledged by corporate America, the private sector. We are working to get it, but that is not our goal at the moment. Our goal at the moment is if you're doing business with the federal government, we're going to make sure that you are certified as a Black-owned business. But more importantly, we're going to hold that agency accountable for its Black spend. If you're a 51% owned Black business and you're doing business with the federal government, we count you, we count that spend, and then we can now report that spend back to the federal government. During the Obama administration, there was a goal of a 23% spend with minority firms. They hit that number and exceeded that number. Over the last 4 years, we don't know what the spend was. We don't know how much of that went to Hispanic firms, Black firms, Asian firms, or GLBT firms. There is a cry, there is a demand that there's some transparency as well as accountability. But in order for us to be able to do that, I need you to be certified somewhere, either through the SBA, through NMSDC, or through the US Black Chamber. I'm not here pushing anyone, well, that's a lot. I'm here pushing the US Black Chambers because I think it will help the majority of Black firms. But if you're doing business with the Department of Transportation, please get certified either with NMSDC or through the US Black Chamber. Let us know if you're doing business with the federal government so that we can count your numbers both in the Department of Transportation and other agencies throughout the United States. Oh, and the question that just came up is free. During the year 2021, that certification process is free. It takes about 15 minutes to onboard your firm at byblack.us, byblack.us. It takes about 15 minutes to onboard your firm, ask some basic questions, use of some technology, and about 15 to 20 minutes to be certified.
I have a question with regard to that on the minority business enterprise. I don't know if that's national or not. I know that in Illinois, it's a prerequisite. In California, it's a prerequisite. What do you know about the MBE? Because you didn't mention that in terms of being able to secure contracts, but yet that's an issue here. You must have that.
Yeah, I've always said right now, as a Black business owner, you can't really be certified as a Black business owner unless you're in those two buckets. The third bucket is minority. And that's where the minority business enterprise kind of falls. And nothing wrong with that, is at least if you're trying to get some type of vantage point. But I think it's more important that we have intentionality, especially in the year 2021, as a Black issue is really prevalent. And I think for my organization, we're trying to make sure that Black business issues are being addressed.
So in that vein, then you do aid, no matter what area that they're in or what region they're in the US, you do aid them in being able to put together these documents because they're fairly lengthy and ask for a great deal of information.
Yeah, our certification is very simple. It is proof of ownership, 51% or more, whatever that looks like from your standpoint. A driver's license back and front. Pretty much that's it. There are a couple of other boxes that need to be checked, but in reference to documentation, it is very simple. And it should be. I should not have to prove to you who I am. But right now in Washington, D.C., I'll even take it bigger than that. Nationally, a DoorDash has said, you know what, if you're a Black-owned restaurant, we are going to waive the fees of delivery. Well, guess what? There are Asian businesses, Thai businesses, Hispanic businesses taking advantage of it, saying that they are Black-owned. And yet we know they aren't Black-owned. Facebook just did a huge survey, 98,000 businesses, about the impact of COVID-19, and never asked the question, what is your race or nationality? We, as a community, need to be able to identify who, what, and where we are so that we can create programs to address those communities that need them the most. Historically, when we create minority programs, diversity inclusion programs, no disrespect to anyone, but it has been white women that have benefited the most from all of the minority programs. They were created under a Republican administration to try to level the playing field for Black businesses. But between the years of 1950 and 2020, we've seen no detriment. We've seen no decrease in the wealth gap between white businesses and Black businesses, and white families and Black families, because it's all under one big melting pot. We can no longer have gumbo. I just want crab legs this year.
Well, that goes back to the pie. I heard the axiom, we don't want the pie, we'll take the crumbs. I don't believe in that. Go for the pie or don't go for anything at all.
Exactly.
Do you have any more questions, Toma?
Yes, another question comes from Steven. I have lots of Black women early startup clients. They all ask what opportunities, funding, grants, programs are available for them. Are there any, and what chances do they have to qualify?
Great question. Yes, the U.S. Black Chamber has partnered with several of our corporate partners to provide grants for startup businesses as well as existing businesses. USBlackChambers.org is where they can find out more information depending upon where you are, what type of business you're in. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. I would tell my businesses, those businesses that have a great social media platform that can be found are the ones that are winning. What we found is the businesses that did not participate in the stimulus package, it wasn't because they weren't good business owners. They just didn't have the visibility. It wasn't because they didn't have financial literacy. It was because they didn't have the relationships. And so I'm telling people during this period of time, develop the relationships that you need, not just for today, but for the future. And so if that's with banks, if that's with CDFIs, if that's with local chambers. And then the second piece of that question, there are some businesses here that are more larger in scale. And we've seen across the country, what we're hearing is Black-owned businesses, I don't want a loan. I know I'm gonna pay twice the rate for the loan. I don't want a loan. I don't want a grant. The $10,000 grant is great, but that ain't gonna get me through the difficult times. What I need is equity. I need someone to believe in me enough to invest in my firm. In the 80s and the 90s, we had programs called MESBIC programs. These were investment companies owned by minorities that had matching funds. So as an investment firm, if you could go raise $10 million, the federal government would match your $10 million so that now you could invest $20 million in a Black firm. That's how BET came about. That's how TV One came about. That's how many of our large hotel owners came about. It was investments. We need to start thinking about how do I present my business to a firm that will invest in me versus always just looking for the quick fix. I told my firms, I'm not as interested in us getting the fintech dollars forwarded to our phone so that we could go pay rent next month. I was more interested in talking to the landlord of that building to say, let's develop a relationship to allow this business owner to get through these difficult times. You're making an investment in them, and then they will in turn make an investment back to you. But we got to change our own conversation from a loan or a grant to really about investments.
And let me add to that too, that from our perspective here at SCORE, the relationship should also be with a financial institution. That's been one of the issues. If you don't have a relationship with a bank, then it's even more difficult to get those funds because they're coming through the bank. Yes, they're coming from the SBA, but ultimately it's the bank that has to approve that. And if you don't have a relationship with that institution, then it's going to be even more difficult. You can go to these smaller DCFIs to secure funds, but if you're talking about developing partnerships and relationships, then the currency exchanges won't do it. The payday loans won't do it. It will have to be with an institution. And it's easier than you think to open those relationships. You can do it with just a credit card. That's an automatic credit checking account by opening up a credit card account with the institution. So have these relationships. And just based on what Ron is saying, the PPP and all of these funds are available to you if you're exposed to what it actually takes to get them. And that exposure means if you're going to be in business, You must be in business. That means you need to live, breathe, and eat this every day so that you can identify the relationships that you need to have so that you can grow your business in a productive way.
Yeah, one of the things that we found during the first round of the stimulus package was the funds came through the large banks, the B of A's, the Wells Fargo's of the world. And they were getting paid based upon the size of the loan. So many of our small businesses weren't able to get a loan, not because they didn't have a good business package. So again, folks, don't believe the hype. We are not financially illiterate. That's bullshit. We didn't have the relationships. They developed those relationships with those bankers on Saturday mornings playing golf. So when the stimulus package hit Friday evening, they already had their check by Friday afternoon. We told corporate America, we told the banks, and we told SBA, you've got to now make sure that the CDFIs, those community banks, those Black banks in our communities have the funds to make sure that they can make the loans. Now, 70% of the loans that Black banks make are to Black homeowners and Black-owned businesses. So where should you go first? A Black-owned bank. I spent a lot of months in Chicago at Seaway Bank. But guess what? Seaway Bank went out of business not because there wasn't enough people making deposits. We had people literally driving from Cleveland and Toledo to Chicago to open up bank accounts. But banks don't make money when you make a deposit. Banks make money when you make a loan. And so we've got to be creative of how we develop these banking relationships. And then lastly, now you'll find out that the new funds are coming through the CDFIs. And I'm saying that's great, but I don't want to let the big banks off the hook either, because the majority of Black-owned businesses bank with the Wells Fargo's, the B of A's, the larger banks as well. And during a period of time where COVID is here, and many of those small banks don't either have the technology or the funds to make many of the business loans that we need, I'm not going to let the large banks off the hook. I'm going to keep pressuring them as much as we pressure the SBA to make sure that those dollars get into local banks. But I will end on this. As we develop these relationships with local CDFIs and Black-owned banks, it is a bigger conversation. That's how we develop our communities. As Bill stated, that's how we develop true relationships to be able to grow and expand. Again, this ain't going to be the last pandemic. This isn't going to be the last scare. And you better have someone that is sitting at that bank that knows you, understands your business, knows your passion, and is willing to make an investment in your firm. And that ain't going to come through no fintech relationship. That's not going to come with you just getting a check. That is going to come with you sitting down, developing a relationship with a bank, with a financial institution that appreciates what it is you're trying to do, accomplish long-term.
You know, we can talk about this to ad nauseum, just based on what I'm hearing and then what I can contribute as well, because these institutions, you must understand that the institution itself is only alive because of the funds that can be brought into the institution. You can't go in there and be friends and say, listen, I'm putting a couple of dollars in your bank, so now I expect you to sponsor my event. That's not going to happen. You have to build these relationships, and they have to be long-term relationships. And long-term means today you start with $50, maybe next month, 500. The month after that, 50,000. Work your way to 5 million. These institutions will work with you because then they will see that they're getting funds from you. They're looking for depositors and they're looking for loans. Anything that they can't put in their vault doesn't exist. So business is business, and you need to be business oriented when you walk in that bank, knowing what they are looking for, because you already know what you're looking for, but know what the bank is looking for, and you will have a much better relationship when you understand the people that you're working with. That's where the exposure comes in. Being exposed to these institutions attend their affairs, go to their events, see what these guys are doing. And that's good for your business too. Just because you believe you know and understand your business, learn more. Go to the different conventions, go to the different affairs. When we're online, I'm constantly getting invites to participate, not as a speaker, but as a participant to banks that are talking about nonprofits and how to work better with nonprofits, what kind of PPPs that they have available. Then take advantage of that. Listen to that and learn from it. Every day you should be learning how institutions work, because that's where you're going to develop your revenues and that's where you're going to develop your business. Do we have more? And I think we're coming up on our time here.
I believe we have 2 more minutes. So the last question would be for Ron, and it comes from a client. How people can join USBC and if there's a fee? And if it's easier for you, you can chat, you can type the name of the website in the chat for those who are interested and would like to join.
I will send that through Bill, but it's an easy one. It's US Black, BLACK Chambers, CHAMBERS.org. USBlackChambers.org. It's I think it's $150 for membership. We have the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce as well. That's a local chamber that you can also support. And you can onboard your business at ByBlack, BYBLACK.US. We are having a Black History Month event on the 24th of February. You can find out more information there. We'll be talking a lot about venture capital, but most importantly, about the historical perspective of Black business and the Black dollar and the value of the certification. And you'll see and hear many stories of how it has worked. Many of our corporate partners will be there as well to discuss their acknowledgement of the program. And there'll be some opportunities there to do business with many of them as well.
Ron, I want to thank you for participating in this. And I can't say enough that you brought a wealth of information to our viewers and our listeners. This was destined to happen. When Ron and I first talked, I think I mentioned the relationship we had, which was almost zero, because when he heard the word SCORE, that was the end of that conversation. And yet, here he is. We prodded him and he said, okay, and here we are. But the benefit is that he recognizes, as we recognize, the importance of having interaction. Regardless to what his thoughts was or mine are, we have to have this dialogue. We have to communicate. So I got to ask you, Ron, so what do you think about us now?
Well, I will say the same thing that I would have said in the beginning. Over the last 5 years, Matt, we heard a great deal about making America great again. And as we celebrate Black History Month, I will say Black folk want America to be great as well. But in order for there to be a great America, there must be a great Black America. And in order for there to be a great Black America, there must be great Black businesses. And in order for there to be great Black businesses, there must be great Black chambers and great relationships with other organizations like SCORE. We cannot do all the work by ourselves. This year is really about collaboration. And so we are honored to be here this afternoon. My perception of SCORE is different because of the fact that I know we have the same mission at the end of the day, which is that we need to move our community move it forward through an economic agenda that's inclusive of Black-owned businesses. And so I'm excited about the future.
I'm going to turn this back over to Hannah because we're ready to go. But as you can see, diplomacy is certainly one of Ron's huge advocate points. And we recognize that and we accept it. So thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
That is well said, Ron. Ron and Bill, thank you so much for an inspiring and also thought-provoking conversation. You both really provided our attendees some candid insights on what they can do now, especially Black-owned businesses, to be intentional. You said it, that's the key, to be intentional and be prepared. Build those key relationships and strategically leverage opportunities to increase those revenues and really grow into a sustainable and profitable business. And to those of you who joined in today, thank you so much for taking the time to invest in yourself and your business growth. The fact that you're here shows me, Bill, Ron, and Toma and the team that you're really serious about your business growth and continued success. So go out there and make it happen. Remember, you're not alone. The U.S. Black Chambers here, SCORE Chicago's here. We have a lot of partner organizations that are all here to support you. So please stay connected with us. Keep attending these webinars and schedule your appointment with our mentors. The mentoring sessions at SCORE are always free. They're confidential and can be scheduled at chicago.score.org. And before I end, Bill, did you want to go ahead and talk about the upcoming webinars?
Yes, we have quite a few webinars that are coming up this month, and we definitely would like for you to participate. I think we have that we can bring that up, some of the webinars that we have. And what I really want everyone to understand is that these webinars are by our committee. By our council, rather. We've established our Black American Council to provide an extra service and extra insight into what our relationships can be. And certainly having Ron kicking this off with us begins this relationship. So we have, and I see we have the dates there for the events that are coming up. So we're looking forward for your participation. And remember, each one of these people are not only members of our Black American Council, but these are also mentors here in Chicago that are prepared to help you and prepared to give their information and their thoughts about what's coming up in the future. So thank you, and we look forward to talking with you, and have a wonderful day.